Your boy Danny the Bull here. Nice round table with a homie patient hodler in the house. We got Doctor of Stuff in the house. We've got Foster Hilt in the house. I want to thank you guys first and foremost for joining me. A little short notice today. I wasn't really expecting to do a stream, but I saw this, stuff online with Coffeezilla contacting the Vault, OG Vault, who's in the house. So I wanted to put a little stream together to get together with some smart people and talk about it. So first of all, how are you guys doing?
Good, man.
Good.
Doing all right. Doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, Coffeezilla is kind of like an investigative journalist / YouTuber who uncovers scams in the crypto world, right? He did a multi-part series on SafeMoon. He researched it for years. Not for years. He researched it, did a good amount of research with a couple of guys and exposed a lot of the things that were taking place behind the scenes. He also went in on a project called CryptoZoo that Logan Paul was attached to. And that got a lot of publicity. Coffeezilla has 3 million subscribers. He has a lot of reach, and he reached out to Vault. I think he's been digging a little in the community. So first of all, are you guys familiar with Coffeezilla? What do you think about his content?
Yeah, definitely familiar with Coffeezilla, and I watched all of his content regarding Logan Paul and CryptoZoo, and the spat that kind of happened, because then Logan Paul was like, "I'm going to sue you," and then he backtracked because I think that he got some pretty sound advice from some attorneys that were like, "You're going to spend a lot of money and not win this, because everything that he's brought forward is just facts. Like that's all he's done, and it's probably going to put even more attention on the fact that you've rug pulled your community." So then he's like, "Hey, I'm not going to do that, and I'm sorry. Hey, CryptoZilla, I think you're a good guy. I think what you're doing is good in the space." So yeah, I've watched all of that, and he does dig deep, and so he's kind of like a Zaxby, but for the crypto space, but not necessarily blockchain, but kind of investigative work right into some of the scammers or like the pump and dumpers, or these people, especially like high profile individuals, right, that use their status to just take money from people, basically.
Yeah, I've always really enjoyed Coffee's content, and I've been watching it for quite a while now. I think what's really awesome about him is that, while he's an investigative journalist and he has no kind of authority, he doesn't work for law enforcement or anything like that. His work really transcends just kind of social media, and it's interesting to hear that in a lot of his investigations that he'll have law enforcement entities reach out to him to get more information that he's kind of found out, or sources that he's got information from. So he has a very unique way of going about getting information, and I think that he's built up a fairly substantial following. So I feel like, especially in the crypto space, people feel comfortable speaking with him and sharing information with him. So I think he's really able to kind of delve deep into a lot of these issues, whether it's about, the topic we'll talk about here today, or any of these other projects. It's really interesting how people have been willing to kind of just come forward and speak with him and get their stories out there and get information out there. And he's able to produce results, as we've seen with Logan Paul and CryptoZoo. Even though people haven't gotten their money back yet, he keeps it in the spotlight. He doesn't give up, and it'll be interesting to see how it all turns out.
Yeah, I can keep that very short. I have not been watching a lot of Coffeezilla. I have seen the Logan Paul stuff, but other than that, I think you guys are more the experts on his content than I am. Although the one of CryptoZoo, Logan Paul, was very interesting to me. So I'm curious what we are going to discuss about this today.
Yeah, if you guys are wondering why I'm wearing the suspenders and the button down, that's the attire that Coffeezilla wears. So right now, today I'm Danny the Bullzilla.
I love it, man. I love
Nice.
it.
Yeah, it's funny that you said that federal people reach out to Coffeezilla to lean on his research. I believe that the FBI started an investigation into SafeMoon, and so I'm sure that they are working with him and looking at his content to help uncover things. What are your thoughts on him looking into Omi and reaching out to people in the community? I had heard about this kind of behind the scenes, that people whispering, but then it was confirmed today when Veve Vault dropped that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there was obviously a lot of misconceptions going around in the community as you know, you hear whispers, like you say, and people run with narratives. But, you know, shout out to OG Vault for making a quick video just to update everyone in the community to kind of expectation set for people. I think maybe not everyone has heard yet, or maybe they have and maybe don't understand or whatever, but Coffeezilla spoke with OG Vault about some of these allegations pertaining specifically to influencers pumping and dumping the token back in March and April of 2021. So just to kind of clear up what people may think that Coffee is looking into, he's not looking into the team. He's not looking into you know, the token right now or the project right now, or the fact that, you know, OUP hasn't been delivered as an example. Like, that's not the scope of what he's looking into. He's specifically looking into these allegations of you know, influencers who had significant reach, who have alleged to have pumped the token on various exchanges where it was available back in March and April, and then obviously at the behest of retail, you know, dumped on them. So.
Yeah, I'll shout out OG Vault too. I mean, he could have, with the clickbait, really made it and just been like, oh, like Coffeezilla is just looking into like Omi, right? And left it at that. But really also included that blurb where he said, hey, I'm really just looking into that pump and dump thing, right? So just providing that full context there. I think that that's important. And I look, at the same time, you know, people reached out to me and they're like, what do you think of this? And I said, look, I'm fine with him doing a deep dive into that. I feel like I've done a very deep dive. And this was before I knew that he was just going to look at that March and April, right? But I'm like, look into the whole thing. And if he puts out something and there's information that I'm not aware of, like, I want that, right? I try to continue to look at things objectively. I feel like I do pretty solid research. That doesn't mean I can't miss something. So I actually was like excited when I thought that he was going to be looking into the OMI token as a whole. But I do think it'll be very interesting to see, because this happens in the space. It's not just with OMI, but like, I mean, I've just seen that with so many projects where they reach out to huge influencers and they say, we'll pay you a lot of tokens, or we'll give you a discount on these tokens if you talk about this, right? And at the time, look, BitBoy was accused of that. Zaxby did some stuff on that, and BitBoy admitted to it, and he's like, look, I've changed. Like, I'm not doing these things anymore. What's his name? Crypto Lark, you know, like, he got called out on a lot of things. So it's common, and it's terrible, and it's not good for the space. And I think it's great that we have people like Coffeezilla that are trying to ferret out these weasels in the crypto space, right? That are just there taking advantage of people. They don't care about us. And I look at Logan Paul, and that his actions to me say, I truly don't care about my community. I'm going to use my name and the people who care about me or like me and follow me. I'm going to build up this thing, and then I'm just going to leave you out to dry. You know, like, and until Coffeezilla even put a spotlight on it, he hadn't been in his own Discord for this project in over a year.
For the CryptoZoo project?
The CryptoZoo project. And then his first thing is like, hey, what's up, peeps? It's been a while. Not like, oh, guys, I'm so sorry. I have not been active in here. You know what I mean? It's like no apology until he's called out on that. And like, it doesn't matter whether it's Logan Paul or someone else, right? Like, bring the spotlight to these things and making people aware so that they're more educated before they go into these type of projects. So my thought.
Yeah, I first of all completely agree that thanks to Veve Vault or OG Vault for putting that out, that video. And secondly, I think it's very important to make that difference here. One side is just looking into something, into influencers pumping and dumping. The other side is to completely tear up a specific project. And I think if you're looking at Twitter of the last months, he would basically only be interested already if he's just scanning Twitter for the word rug pull and constantly seeing red circles and blue hearts and I don't know what going at each other. And it's like, okay, maybe, so this is my tweet count on specific Veve stuff where someone says rug pull, pump and dump, scam, 95% down and so on. So he probably has a list that turns into a short list of projects that he should look into, because if you look at his content or at this, for example, this CryptoZoo content, looks like there has been a lot of research and stuff going on, and to really find all of these, to really dedicate that much research, you need to find the perfect project to launch such a video. And even though he's probably reaching out, he's testing the water, I think, to see how much is there behind these rug pull allegations and the pump and dump allegations, and maybe team member selling off. How much can he find, and is it worth putting together a video? And yeah, I think everyone that is invested in Ecomi and Veve can only hope that he doesn't find anything that is worth making a video of the magnitude of the Logan Paul one. And just to put this right in front, I'm pretty sure there is not enough for that. But yeah, I think we will discuss that.
Yeah, and with the Logan Paul video, it wasn't just Logan Paul. It was also what is it? CryptoZoo? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
The fact that they hadn't delivered basically a workable product, right? That they were selling. Mm-hmm. So are there any parallels? For people who are concerned or worried, do you think that there are any parallels between a project like CryptoZoo and one like Veve?
So I don't know if people realize this, but apparently the CryptoZoo, even the artwork was literally they took images from what's that free image website?
Stock photos.
Stock
photos, and literally just merged stuff, no effort whatsoever, right? And they really just used his name, whereas Veve's got major IP tied to it, right? Disney, and the other thing too is Logan Paul is one individual, and granted, he's got far reach and enough to raise about $1 million, right, in his NFT project. Veve can make that in a week with just a couple drops, one to two drops, tied to all of this IP. So not a lot of parallels that way, except for I would say that there was initially with Veve, right? There were some statements that were made that led people to ape in, me included, with certain things that I thought were going to happen a lot sooner. I would say that's where the parallel ends, because Veve has started to complete some of those promises. Some of them are still outstanding, right? Interoperability is still outstanding. But we are getting master collector points now. We still have the OUP. We don't have that token utility yet. But nothing has been done with CryptoZoo. Nothing. And that's a big difference. And it's been over a year. And like I said, I mean, Logan Paul isn't even in his own Discord in over a year. So not a lot of good parallels that you can draw and be reasonable about it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not a fan of the term rug pull in general, because I feel like there's a very specific connotation associated with it that people very much overlook. They'll just, anytime that something's not going up or one thing isn't delivered or whatever, they call it a rug pull. And to me, a rug pull is it's a very intentional action to do something almost criminal, right? You look at the Squid Game token as an example, and I'm not saying that that's criminal, but you want to look at a rug pull, right? This token was launched and then everyone bought in and it was hyped, but the person never relinquished ownership of the contract, and they physically pulled all of the liquidity out of the project and sent the token to zero. That is a rug pull. That is the definition of what a rug is. Now, when we look at Ecomi and Veve, sure, they are slow as sin when it comes to delivering on many of the things that we're hoping for. But unless you can somehow produce evidence or information to show that they have not only gone against what they've indicated that they're going to deliver, but are intentionally not going to deliver on those things, I don't see how you can make any parallels between something like CryptoZoo, where, like you said, was fully abandoned by the team, in this case Logan Paul, and its people for a year, until people suddenly brought light to it. There's nothing that exists right now in Veve and Ecomi that has just disappeared and then, someone brought light to it, hey, it's coming back. No, things are taking longer than I think many of us would like. And as I've indicated on previous podcasts, and as I say here again today, slower than I would like even, but at the same time, those deliverables are being hit. We are seeing things like cash out returning. We are seeing things like MCP being integrated into the platform. Hopefully with San Diego Comic-Con, we'll start to see new integrations, new licenses, and new opportunities with the platform. So yeah, I don't see a parallel here between that and CryptoZoo, but that doesn't mean that there isn't certain actions that certain people have taken with the token that would not be nefarious and wouldn't warrant looking into further. And I think that that's likely more so where Coffeezilla is going with it in this regard at this time.
And those certain people or person you're referring to is no longer at Ecomi.
I mean,
any allegations here.
I think that, you know, there's obviously some allegations and some names that have been thrown out that would be known to the community. But at the end of the day, you know, I can't substantiate one way or another to say whether or not they're true. But I mean, when you look at the volume on Bitforex for Ecomi back in March of 2021. I mean, we were looking at over $100 million in 24-hour volume some days, and we're down and lucky to get $700,000 across all exchanges these days. So I think, you know, there was obviously some what would likely be perceived as unnatural interest in the token, and whether that came from certain individuals with large followings pumping the token to other individuals is yet to be seen. But I could see why someone like Coffeezilla, you know, if given enough information and directed in the right manner to certain individuals, would consider, you know, looking into it further. So
have you guys watched the video where Logan Paul talks about Omi?
Yeah.
It was the video where I discovered Omi for the first time.
Okay.
His podcast where he talks about Omi, his Impulsive podcast where he mentions it, was the first time I had ever heard of Omi. And that was actually what started me on my journey to do the research and eventually buy in a couple of weeks later. Had I bought in the day that he talked about it on his podcast, I think that was right around its all-time high. And I definitely would be in a much worse situation than I'm in now, but not to say that there's any direct correlation to that, to be clear. But yeah, it
What was your
definitely,
original investment?
I got in at 0.0073 was the very first purchase.
Did you dump
that
like
I
a
ever
lot of
made.
money in, or did you dip your toe in?
No, I think I bought like 100,000 Omi, but mind you, back then that was like $1,000 Canadian, right? So I mean, it wasn't a small amount of money either. But yeah, and then I DCA'd up all the way to 0.0094. And I think with the prices being where they're at now, I think my DCA is somewhere around 0.002 to 0.0021. So I mean, I'm still, you know, down on paper, but I've definitely improved my position quite significantly from where I got in.
Did you feel like it was organic when you watched that? Like, have you rewatched it since? Like, have you watched his video recently where he talked about Omi?
It felt super organic, to be honest with you. And then this is, I'm always very cognizant of when people on the internet talk about things, you always have to take it with a grain of salt, because you have to assume, at least in my opinion, that everyone has a vested interest in whatever they're talking about, right? Because why else would you bother talking about it? Why would you waste your time? Even if it's to generate YouTube, you know, AdSense revenue, or if you're sponsored by someone or whatever, which is why I'll do my best now. Every time I talk about something, I'll always disclose, hey, I think Omi is X. I own Omi. Hey, I like the Spider-Man statue. Hey, I bought a Spider-Man statue. Just so that people know, like, you can now make a decision based on the fact that you know where I stand on that specific issue because I've disclosed it to you. But when I heard Logan talking about it on the podcast, they were talking about something, you know, completely different. And then out of nowhere, it was kind of just like, oh, you have Omi? Omi. Yeah, Omi's a wagon, man. And like, oh, you got some Omi? And then, you know, Mike comes over the top. Oh, I found some stuff that I liked a little bit better. Oh, but I might have to look into getting some Omi again. And I was like, oh, this is it. And then they just moved on. They moved on to the next thing. And I was like, and, you know, Pokemon was mentioned at one point. I was like, oh, this is interesting. And then so I started doing my own research about it. So I was like, how have I never heard of this? But usually when you see like a sponsored plug by something, right, it's like, it's very obvious. It's very over the top. It's very like, I'm selling you on it. And this was just kind of like, hey, we were having a conversation. Oh, let's switch topics. And so I was like, maybe this is just something that he is, you know, genuinely interested in or found on his own. And I should look into it myself. Because despite what people think about Logan Paul as a person, financially he's obviously done quite well for himself. So I'm going to overlook some of the you know, conceptions of who he is as a person and go, hey, if it can make me money, I'm going to look into it. I'm not going to hold it against the guy. But yeah, no, it felt natural for me at the time. I don't know. Did it feel natural for you looking back on it?
So it's interesting to hear you explain it. You were like, they were talking about something completely different.
Mhm.
Then out of nowhere comes this Omi, it's a blurb, and then it's gone. That to me is not organic.
You know what? That's a fair point.
Right?
That is a fair point.
Because if it's organic, then they sit and talk about it for a while and like leads into it, right? And it's like, oh, Omi is a wagon thing. But just as like a side note, right? Like we understand that Kim Kardashian got targeted by the SEC, right?
Yes.
For she even said like
she said it was sponsored.
She disclosed it,
right?
Yeah.
And she still got tagged, right? And so when you get, this is where I think Coffeezilla has some
ground
for this investigation to then forward this information on to someone like the SEC to say, okay, now granted, they would have to deem Omi a security, and I've talked about this a little bit, right? Because obviously the SEC doesn't have grounds if it's not, but
well, they nailed Kim Kardashian with a
disclosure consumer protection laws that come into play too, right? About like disclosing that type of stuff. Like, this is a paid promotion. I'm promoting this product. And if he's not disclosing that, which he obviously did not in that podcast, if he was paid to do so, right? Which that's alleged at this point. But that's where I think Coffeezilla is going at it, because there are legal ramifications there. Then if he was paid or got a discount on this token, there's some form of payment or benefit to him for talking about Omi that he then did not disclose to his audience. And even if you don't disclose it properly, like apparently Kim Kardashian didn't, right? You can get into hot water with that.
So I have a question, and Danny, sorry, I don't want to hijack your channel because this is your show, but I feel like he's very qualified to speak on this potentially. So I'm just curious. So if someone who doesn't formally have a relationship with a project pays someone to speak on a project, and then the person doesn't disclose it, I mean, if you're being paid to promote something, you're required to disclose it. But is there any that you're aware of legal ramifications for the person paying? So if I pay you to talk about Foster token, well, actually, that's a bad example because that'd be my token. I pay you to talk about Danny token just because I own Danny tokens. I'm not a part of Danny token team. I don't have insider info. It's just I hold it and I'm like, hey, I need this to go up. I pay you to talk about it. You don't disclose it. Well, yeah, you get in trouble, but can I get in trouble too? Do you know?
Not that I'm aware of. Like with the Kim Kardashian thing, right? That token, they didn't go after the token for Kim Kardashian's non-disclosure, right? Like they went after Kim Kardashian.
But did she disclose it? I thought she disclosed.
She did, but not
properly. Fine print. It was like fine print. It was
there's certain ways that you have to disclose things, and sometimes, so like there's people who are like over the top, and they'll be like, it says paid promotion. YouTube does a thing, right, where during the entire video in the corner it'll be like, this is a paid promotion, so that at any point if someone comes in at like midway through your video, right, where you're talking about it, maybe you talked about it at the beginning, hey, this is paid promotion or something like that, but they come in the middle, they might not have heard that, right, not understand that it's a paid promotion. So there are definitely ways to disclose that properly, and apparently Kim Kardashian didn't do enough. And that was kind of like a warning signal to people out there, especially celebrities. It's like, look, if you're going to get paid for this stuff, you got to make sure and be over the top and making sure that everyone knows that the reason you're even talking about this is because someone paid you to do it.
Okay, that makes sense.
But this all came also at the time when, for example, Cryptos R Us had an official Ecomi logo in his channel when he was talking about Ecomi. I know that because I heard first time about Ecomi from him before I even knew that my cousin was in the Veve collectibles at the other side. So the big question is, from whom did which specific promotions or paid promotions come, and which influencers bought something, pumped and dumped to benefit out of their own interest without any external financial incentive. And I think if they're going back to 10 minutes ago to that initial question, if you want as a Coffeezilla produce a case and make a video, it's definitely about the Omi side and not about the Veve side or the Veve collectible side, because I think at the Veve collectibles everything is relatively straightforward, as you guys said, big brands as Cavell always used to say, they have an army of lawyers that check the stuff and that probably hammer you into the ground if you do something shady with that IP. At least Disney would do that as a control freak in the industry. But the Omi side is different. So if you would want to make a video like that CryptoZoo out of Omi, and if you do it right and get a lot of voices, maybe you can put something together, because you have a token that started out at 5 to 4 zeros, moved a lot of that time sideways, where a lot of whale wallets were created with billions of tokens, and then you have, from one point to another, in the middle of a high liquidity bull run, incentives to YouTubers to talk about it. You have a CryptoZoo, everyone talks about it and shoot up to 1 cent. And then these massive wallets are selling into that thing. It's selling it until 001, basically, where it has a spring moment. And then these wallets continue to dump into 005 all the time until, what was that, Christmas 2021, when it started dropping in the final bear market collapse. So there was basically, since that 1 point something cents, just exit liquidity creation, one after another, and it was, it's going up, it's coming back, and every time some other excitement. And then in the mix, and if Coffeezilla can pull that off, in the mix you have a team member that also moved and sold Omi. If you can find proof for that, then you have your case, and then there will be a video, in my opinion. So yeah.
Is that video, in your opinion, damaging to Omi?
What's that?
Is that video that you said that he could make out of that scenario, Hodler, do you think that would be damaging? Or do you think no, because it's from 2 years ago, someone possibly disconnected now?
It depends. It depends if it's more about some people that are doing pump and dump trades and have created a network that is completely unrelated to current Veve team, then yes. But and we do not have a connection yet between the Omi token and the Veve collectible since 2 years not. Even the program that has been outlined in articles has been shut down, revamped, whatever, but not disclosed how it will be. So this completely disconnected. There's no connection besides that there is a wallet or a button for a wallet that you can transfer to. So if there was a video that involves also team members, then probably this would be the end for the Omi token, because then they would have to cut it loose to not damage the brands and the collectibles that are on the good going business side of the Veve app. That is my that would be my worry if there is such a proof, such a finding. And one Ecomi related person has gone very, very silent in the last months. So I don't know.
Ecomi? Well, I think they've been silent because of the fact that they shifted their strategy, right? They did a lot of talking early on, and they kind of oversold what they were able to do. They weren't able to deliver in a timely manner, right? So they oversold, underdelivered, and I think now their strategy is to just roll things out, and they have rolled things out on the Veve side. We're still waiting on the Omi side. To be fair, they had to shift their tokenomic system a year and a half ago due to regulatory concerns. So they had to totally dissolve the old tokenomic system and come up with a new utility plan. But still, it's taken some time to execute.
One addition to that before I get stomped into the ground here, the hiring of a blockchain.
He knows what's coming. Hodler knows what's coming.
I know what's coming, but the hiring of a blockchain team actually is the only point where I would say, okay, if you were already knowing that you have to cut that loose, you wouldn't do such a move, right? So that's where I say we don't know what that team is, what it looks like when it has been hired, when it has started to perform, how many people are there, only working students or high performance developers. We don't know anything of that. There's no GitHub for publishing and so on. But they have announced that they have put that into Veve related articles. So there is a connection again with the Veve brand. So like I said in the beginning, I personally don't think there is a video coming in that magnitude. But if there was, then it would evolve around that. And that would be hypothetically the consequence. And now I'm done.
Go in.
Yeah.
I just have to say this. I'm just going to say this real quick. I do think that we have to put it in context of what was happening back in February, March of that same year. So it wasn't just these influencers talking about it. You had just had, I just blinked out on the NBA Top Shots.
Yeah.
Like the LeBron James, like number one moment, right? Had just sold for 250 grand. People were starting to be like, what the heck are these NFTs? What tokens are associated with NFTs, right? Or these digital collectible type things. So like people had started to make that connection with Veve and Omi, right? And so the token, even before people had started talking about it, had already started this massive run up, right? Like it just spiked like crazy around that same time that LeBron James moment was bought. So, I mean, there is part of that. And then that's where I think that some people saw the opportunity then to jump in and to hype that up. And there is a difference, right, between me buying the token and then talking about the token, right? And then it bumping up and then selling it, as opposed to being paid by someone to talk about the token. Now, and the difference there's a couple of differences, but one is like the legal ramifications, right? And then the other is credibility ramifications. So if you're constantly talking up a token because you own it and then you're dumping it on your community right after your show ends, right, and the token pumps, people are going to, like, that trust is lost, right? And there's just like, okay, well, anytime you're talking about a token, it's just so that you can dump on me, and it's not because it actually, you really care about it, right? And then there is the, well, I'm being paid to talk about this. It isn't organic. I didn't feel like, in my opinion, that Omi conversation with Logan Paul was organic at all. I was like, whoa, like that just, it came out of nowhere and then it was gone again. But some people could have perceived it like that. Yeah, for you, you did feel like it was organic. And anyways, I just wanted to point out kind of more context around what's happening. But I'm with you, Patient Holder. I don't think that there's enough for CryptoZilla or Coffeezilla to make a video about the Omi team. I really think that this is highly targeted towards anyone that may have paid Logan Paul to discuss or talk about Omi, and if he was paid in Omi, not disclosing it, and that's where that's going. And like Dan Kuhn had said there, right, should be on the blockchain. Now, good luck if it's on GoChain. If you got paid on GoChain tokens, that's going to be a nightmare, because I believe that is a private permission blockchain, and that's why it's so difficult to really find anything on there. So, but it can be found. Like, you've got to request that information. It's definitely there. If it occurred, it would be there. It's just a lot more difficult than if it was just on Ethereum, right?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't disagree with anything Patient Hodler said. I think that if current team members were to be implicated in kind of any of this activity that was taking place back in 2021, kind of regardless of all of the progress that we've made so far, I think that it would be a pretty big hurdle to overcome for the token. I just really don't believe that that's the case. I don't think that that's the scope of what Coffeezilla is looking into. I think as OG Vault posted, it's fairly clear the what he's looking into right now, and I think that you have to look at what is in Coffeezilla's best interest, right? So, not to say that there's never been anything that I've been unhappy with that's happened in the project or wouldn't even necessarily warrant looking into, but what is going to get him more traction and more views, right? You got to think about who his audience is and who the people involved would be, right? So some, nameless person on the Ecomi team that no one knows, who was allegedly, pumping or dumping tokens, like, no one cares about that stuff. Like, no one knows what Ecomi is in the wider crypto space. No one would bother even watching that unless we're talking it was in the 7 or 8 figures, because then, he can make a flashy title and make it intriguing. Like, if someone dumped $100,000 in tokens, no one cares realistically, like, in the scope. And I'm not want to make it clear. I'm not saying that no one should care, right? Like, in our purpose, like, it could be a big deal, but for Coffeezilla to make a video, like, it's not gonna be worth it for him, right? So I agree. I'm on the same page with both of you. Like, I don't think that there would be anything there that would warrant a video. But if someone like Logan Paul, as an example, who I'm only bringing up because we've been discussing him, was involved, well, we already know the type of following that Logan Paul garners, the type of views that that's going to bring in to a project or to an investigation like Coffeezilla would be doing, and the further ability for Coffeezilla to discredit someone like Logan Paul, who he's already been making videos about and who he can, present this as a history. And because of the amount of people that follow Logan Paul and because of his position in the broader crypto ecosystem, and because everyone knows who he is, that's going to be the video that gets all the views. So as a byproduct of him investigating someone like Logan, let's say, does other information come to light? I mean, it's definitely a possibility. We don't know all the facts and all the people that are involved, but if he was investigating someone like Logan, I think that at the end of the day, that would be the video that he would be aiming to put out. And I think that the screenshot that OG Vault posted kind of speaks to that, right? Like, I don't think anyone needs to worry about the OMI token going anywhere anytime soon, because I don't think that Dan or David are going to be exposed as paying Logan Paul to pump the OMI token. Like, I just don't see that connection there. So I'm not worried about him, looking into it and digging up what he will. And will some people be exposed as nefarious actors? I definitely think that, with Coffeezilla's track record, that's definitely a potential possibility. But am I worried about any current team members being one of them? I'm not.
Just to read that screenshot that Vault put out in case people didn't see it, it says, Coffeezilla wrote, I'm not after Ecomi as an organization. I'm looking into influencers buying over-the-counter tokens for 20% off and dumping them on the open market, all while pumping the tokens on retail.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So
but where did they get the OTC tokens? Like,
OTC,
who sells
right,
them so low in that masses for 20% discount? That's the question. So you also, if you find wallet proof, then you will find where it comes from, and beware that be a business wallet or stuff like that. So,
well, and that's it, right? And you got to think about the amounts that he'd be interested in, right? So if we look at the OMI price at like 0.002, let's say, you're talking a billion tokens is what, $2 million at that point, I guess, right? Mm-hmm. So you need to consider that. How many people had that many tokens, and if it was happening considerably, like regularly, and it was for 20% off, I mean, there's only so many people that owned that many tokens that could even be involved in this in the first place. And I mean, not that I'm defending anyone, but it's public information. You can see the wallets that Dan and David own, and all 60 billion tokens are still sitting on the Go chain in the wallets that they received their unlocks from. So, I mean, that accounts for 20% of the token supply. The business development fund wasn't depleted by billions of tokens, right? So it didn't come from there. That accounts for another 10% of the supply. So, you start to add up the supply and where it could have come from, and who else may have owned that percentage of tokens. And you start to narrow down the list of likely suspects that he'd be looking into. But I'm just not going to put a name to it here publicly. But I think if you've been in the community long enough, you can make an educated guess as to who may be being investigated, and whether there's any truth to it or not. I don't know, but I think the list of names is quite short.
Yeah,
I agree.
And just to clarify something that Vault said as well there, because he's talking about tokens coming from a specific person, whether or not someone worked for a company. OTC just stands for over the counter. So it just means not listing your tokens for sale on an exchange and having it listed through the order book. So, I could reach out to Danny and say, hey, Danny, I have 1 billion OMI tokens. Mm-hmm. It would originally cost you $1 million, but hey, if you have 800 grand, I'll sell them to you. And he can go, okay. And he sends me the money and then I send him the OMI. That's an over the counter transaction. So, I'm not aware. And that's why I asked Dr. because I thought it was interesting. Like, are there any legal ramifications behind someone who doesn't work for anyone in a formal capacity offering to sell tokens at a discount with the premise of someone advertising it on their behalf to pump the token? I really don't know. I'm not a lawyer and I don't live in the US, so I'm not familiar enough with the laws to know. But it'll be interesting to see kind of what comes out from all of it.
Yeah, full disclosure, I'm not an attorney either with this, right? I do have significant experience in consumer protection laws and within the financial sector, but I'm not an attorney. And obviously that would have to be discussed in a court of law. But to my knowledge, I don't think that the person who was sending the tokens or paying would necessarily get into trouble unless they specifically said, do not disclose this. There's some sort of contract where I'm like, I don't want you to disclose that you've been paid this. Then there could be some issues. But typically, I could not see any case in which any sort of federal agency would go after the person paying the person to promote it, because it's that person's responsibility to disclose that they're being paid to promote or to discuss something.
Definitely, I agree.
SoCal had a question here. So if this Coffeezilla chap is only conducting a limited scope targeted video, are there other legitimate broader issues that need to be addressed or that might be addressed under that investigation?
Specifically by Coffeezilla, or just in general, we're discussing it here?
I think he means by Coffeezilla.
I mean, this is where I struggle, and this is where I have to like make it clear what cap I'm putting on, right? So like, I'm an Omi investor, I own Omi, and of course I'm going to want to defend my investment because I want to believe in my investment. Everyone invests in something because they want to make money and they believe in it. Otherwise, why would you invest, right? So with that kind of disclosure in mind, I think what a lot of people are looking for in the community, because I see kind of specific narratives come out every now and again, is people are looking for reasons to doubt that progress will be made because progress has not been made to date. And I think that everyone, you'd have to be blind to not see that, hey, we don't have Omi utility yet. Like, no one's denying that, right? But I think what a lot of people are doing is that they're taking the fact that we don't have anything yet, and they're extrapolating that to, we're never going to have anything. It's a rug pull. They haven't delivered on what they promised, and Omi's going to go to zero, like Bill Gator says, right? So that's what people look at. The way that I choose to look at it is, until such a time that it becomes definitively clear that not only is there no utility, but there will be no utility, and they've abandoned the intention to use the token and give it utility, there's not really anything to discuss, in my opinion, right? And I know people may feel differently about that. I've made it clear several times that I would love to see them deliver quicker on these things, right? That's not a surprise. I would have loved to have found Omi utility last year. I think the token would be doing much better than what it's doing now. Of course, I want it to have utility. However, if the team is genuinely still actively working to add utility to the token, and it just takes longer than what it is, then so be it. But until such a time that definitive evidence comes out that, hey, they've abandoned the token, they're no longer prioritizing it, everyone on the team is dumping, it's no longer a priority, they're removing it, you're never going to have any, like, I don't think that there needs to be kind of this crazy investigation where we look into it and start to assume that there's some giant conspiracy that exists. I just think that this stuff is taking a lot longer than any of us would have liked. And when it does come, we'll breathe a breath of fresh air that it's here. But until such a time, we can either choose to be upset about it and complain about it and assume that there's something nefarious going on, or we can support the team however we can, make our own financial decisions as we can with the information that we have available to us currently. And at the end of the day, we hope that it works out. There's only two options at the end of the day. It'll either work out and one subsection of the community will have been right, or it won't work out and one subsection of the community won't be right. I don't spend all my days sitting here hating on everyone that doesn't believe in the Omi token. If you don't believe in the Omi token, it's perfectly fine. Conversely, hopefully everyone that's hating on the Omi token doesn't spend all day hating on the Omi token publicly and just moves on to other things that they believe in more, that they think are better suited for them at this given time. And then at such a time where Omi becomes a more desirable investment, if/when that does happen, then people can return and everyone will feel better about their current position. Some people will take advantage of it now and some people won't. And at the end of the day, like I said, we'll either see if they're right or wrong.
But it's not about right or wrong. And also believing in the Omi token is borderline cult, because the Omi token is nothing where you can believe in, right? You see performance on the Ecomi token, made or not. And I'm sure you didn't want to say that you believe in like a presence that is the Omi token. That's clear. But I think you don't have to wait. What I want to say is you don't have to wait until there's definitely no progress anymore made or the chance is zero, because that would be when your investment is zero in the Omi token, right? Because then the Ecomi token would flatline the moment that it's clear that there's no progress ever being made, right? I think there should be, or in my opinion, when you're talking about this, you should have in mind that there is one point where you would just point in time where you would just say, okay, no, nothing's coming anymore for yourself, even if they are saying, yeah, in a couple of months it's coming. The question is, when is that point? Is that end of year? Is that at the halving? Is that when the next altcoin season starts? Is that when OMI? So we saw that right now, XRP1, big news for altcoins. OMI didn't move. That's like literally 0% move up downside, right? So people are looking at that. Sorry?
0.37 up on the Ripple news. Less than 1%.
Okay. Okay. I was just thinking I missed something right now on the chart, but from yeah. So it was also red, I think, a couple of percent or so in between, but doesn't matter. It's just I had expected that with this news, people would say, "Hey, look, it's like Ripple is a token with an ICO. It has been deemed in many cases, not in all of the cases, not a security. That should have an effect on OMI with such a low volume and maybe at seller exhaustion. I don't know if we are there or not, to make a move, but there's just nothing." And that's,
I think at the end of the day, people aren't going to buy OMI. The people that already own OMI because they believe in the future potential. The people that are looking to buy OMI that don't own OMI or own OMI and are waiting for something are going to wait until that catalyst hits, right? Like I think that we are at buyer's exhaustion right now. We see the inflection point. I've seen a couple times where OMI's pumped to 0.0007. I think at one point we even hit 0.0008, and then immediately people just sold off because the catalyst wasn't strong enough to sustain an upward price action. But I have to say, I know I could tell by a certain someone's face that's sitting beside me, he also felt something about it. But I very much disagree with in not investing in something just because something hasn't been delivered yet. I think that some of the best investments that you can make are in things that have not been delivered yet. And once again, if people want to wait until those factors are delivered, all the power to them. If people want to wait until they're confident that OMI at a penny is a very secure investment, all of the pieces are in place, and they want to wait till that point, then they very much should. But to say that OMI has nothing going for it and no one should invest in it because OMI had nothing going for it, well, Cardano had nothing going for it for like 3 or 4 years. It had no network. It had nothing. It was just a belief that people thought, hey, this could become something, and people invested in it based on that, right? Tesla, for years before they started delivering their first vehicle, people invested in it. Amazon, when it was just a bookstore, people invested in it. And to be clear, I'm not saying that OMI is going to become the next Amazon or Tesla or whatever, but to say that, the only sound investment strategy is and I'm not saying that you should wait until a token is definitively going to zero before you should sell. If you don't see any upside relative to the downside, or you're concerned about opportunity cost, then 100% sell the OMI token and buy something else. That's not a problem. I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is for myself, and this is just me and me alone, I have not seen enough evidence to support the fact that OMI is not going to be supported that would outweigh people's concerns about the fact that it hasn't been supported yet. We've seen in every monthly AMA for the past 3 or 4 months, their plan. We've seen the OUP roadmap. We've heard about the loyalty program. We know OMI to NFT is a Q2 priority, and we're just rolling into Q3 now. What things get integrated based on that? I have absolutely no idea. Are we going to be sitting here in a year from now having the exact same conversation with OMI exactly where it is now? I have absolutely no idea. But once again, I believe the catalysts are moving in the right direction. You yourself referenced earlier in this video that OMI has hired a blockchain team. Do we know their level of experience? No, we don't. But we can see that the signs are pointing in the right direction. Now, they might not be enough for some people. And like I said, that's totally okay. But at the end of the day, it has nothing to do with the scope of what I believe Coffeezilla is looking into, which is kind of the point of this video. Whether OMI is a good investment or not is kind of its own video entirely. And once again, I think people should make their own, decisions. But I agree with you. Omi does not have utility right now, which, to be quite honest with you, is the reason that I'm most bullish on it. When I'm not online and talking to people and I'm IRL talking to my family and friends, I have and always will maintain that until such a time that Omi has utility, it does not make sense fundamentally for it to increase in price. If we look back 6 months after OUP is delivered, we have Omi to NFT, you're able to buy accessories and it burns on the app. You have land sales that also burn Omi, and the Omi price has not gone up based on those fundamental factors, then I will say that my thesis was wrong and we have a problem. But right now it makes perfect sense. Omi should be this price, if not lower, because once again, there are tons of other investment opportunities out there that in the short term, based on the information we have available to us, would make more sense. But I go to bed easy at night knowing that when I wake up in the morning, Dan and David are not going to have rugged me. Disney's not going to have rugged me. And that the project has safe fundamentals, but I can also wake up in the morning knowing that they've finally dropped the OUP or Omi to NFT is rolled out in the app. And overnight, based on our low volume, we go up 200 or 300%. I think either of those are a possibility. Whether or not they happen, I have absolutely no idea. But I think at the end of the day, it feels for me like a very secure investment. I don't have to worry about it. And whether it takes a little bit longer relative to everything else to go up, I'm willing to make that sacrifice, knowing that the people that I invested in, the team members that I've met at IRL events and have been able to look in the eyes and shake their hands and say, I believe in you, are working every single day out there, whether it's in China, whether it's in North America, going all around the world to secure licenses and partnerships like the one I'm sure we'll talk about later. And I just feel confident based on that. Is it enough for some people? It's not, and that's okay. But for me, it is.
So I just want to point something out. Crypto has this crazy volatility, right? I mean, we've seen 1,000x's with tokens. I mean, just crazy stuff. You ask yourself, why aren't more people in the crypto space extremely wealthy from all of this, right? It's because they don't have the patience and they don't have the foresight, and they're a little too risk adverse, and that's okay, right? Like everyone has that different risk tolerance threshold. But so here's my thing with Omi, and this is my thought process. People keep complaining and saying, why haven't they put it on more exchanges? Why is there why haven't they talked more about the token? And my thesis is this. I think that they really got very serious about the Howey test and saying, is Omi a security, right? And one of the prongs, right, is basically that security is an investment of money in a common enterprise with a reasonable expectation of profits to be derived from the efforts of others. And that last part is very important, because if you can turn the token into utility where the value of the token is derived solely from other people, right? Like you and I, the users of it, earning the token for other purposes, right? We're the ones doing the effort that then make that token worth something more. I think that they are waiting to build in that utility. And until that utility is there, where they can say, we are reasonably confident now that that prong is no longer met, and that we don't feel like Omi would be labeled a security if it went to court. I think that once they meet that threshold and they say, we've developed the utility now and we're starting to see that, that's where I believe that they will start actively marketing the token, because they will feel more reasonably secure or assured that they don't believe that it's a security. And so then if it comes to light as Omi, people talk about Omi, it's so funny. You're right. The price didn't move. Do you know how many crypto tokens are out there? It's like tens of thousands. Okay. Market cap, like Omi is still like on CoinGecko right now. They're like 198, right? Largest market cap out of tens of thousands of tokens. So it's so funny to me when they sit there and say Omi is dead and no one knows about Omi. And I'm like, all right, like what tokens are you looking into overall? Because this token is in the top 200 tokens and it's been in the top 200 tokens for like 2.5 years. So people who have never heard of it, I start to say like maybe they specialize in gaming tokens or something, but like to have never heard of Omi just kind of blows me away. And that happens, right? There are a lot of tokens out there, but it's the people who look at the tokens when things are not going well, but they are looking at where things are headed and they're saying, I'm going to make that bet, right, that things do progress and it does well. And if I'm right, that's where the major money is. But so many people wait for that validation, which that's fine if they want to do that, right? But the when moon has already happened. When Pepe got big, it was after the pump, right? After Pepe had already done like a 50x, a 75x, then people start talking about Pepe. But where were they when it was down below, right? It was a nothing burger. They weren't willing to take the risk at that point, and that's okay. Again, but for me and Omi, I look at that. I look at all of the IP and everything. I'm not going to regurgitate what Foster just already laid out. Like, all of those things for me are there too. And I'm saying I do believe that the token will get listed on more exchanges, that the team is working on that utility. And if that happens, the likelihood then that it becomes more known that there is a pump. And then as soon as there is a pump, that's when everyone else comes in, just like happened with Pepe. And then everyone's talking about it. And the token, there's even more green candles, because after one green candle, typically another green candle follows that, right? And that's those people who are buying when it was boring, like Crypto Rain likes to say. Those are the people that make the money. And that's okay. And that's where I want to be. I want to be where there is risk that things could fall apart, right? But I'm doing the research and saying there's a lot of things here that most people, they're not patient enough to wait for that to happen. And so they're selling their tokens. They're out of it. They say the opportunity cost is too high. And for me, I'm like, look, I'm diversified enough. I'm going to continue to buy Omi at these prices, with my research saying that there's the likelihood that they are going to ramp up that marketing once they get that utility there, that it will get listed on more exchanges, that there will be burning. And then all of a sudden, Omi is doing extremely well. And I am waving high and doing videos from a Lambo.
So before we get to this question by Stan, so Hodler, so are you an impatient hodler, or is it that the words and actions of the team haven't exactly lined up and the trust is eroded a little for you? Is that what it is? Or
No,
is it a
it's
matter of
actually-
you don't want to wait?
It's actually, so first of all, if you really carefully read my name, it says patient hodler, and I hodl with patience, but it doesn't say silent hodler, so I still
There you
speak
go.
about it.
There you go.
So
He's not the silent hodler.
I like
because
it.
you could accuse me of not hodling or not being patiently hodling and stuff like that if I wouldn't hold my Omi tokens and all of my 500 Veve collectibles over all the time while I make positive and negative videos about everything that's going on. But to be honest and to be serious, it's more like, it's not about are you in or out of Ecomi 0 or 100. It's about how much of the portfolio allocation. And I see absolutely Dr. Staff's and Foster's point that if this rocket goes off, then it could be absolutely wild. My point is that also other tokens could be absolutely wild, and there are other projects out there, and you don't have to be 100 million Omi and nothing else, right? In my opinion. So yes, a little bit of trust has eroded through over the time, which is why I would probably be more in Omi if some things wouldn't have turned out the way it did. On the other hand, I'm also not saying everything's abandoned, nothing will happen. I just go on this rational point. I just don't know. I just don't know. And maybe to that argument also, Foster, is when you're investing in Amazon early and in Tesla early, those are stock-based companies that have to open their books and report to boards and about all the actions, where you can see the money flow into the different departments, even how much is allocated for research and development, how much is allocated for sales efforts, which I don't know, marketing channels have been pushed over the time. They have to report on everything. And on Veve, or on Veve not so much, but on Ecomi, we are absolutely or mostly blind with regards to that, with the development of the token, which is why I think that an early Amazon investor had more transparency on what's going on than we have on Omi. So besides community update threads, while they're revamping video updates. Yeah.
So I agree with you on that, and I want to make a point to that to say that I very much agree with you. There is a lot more transparency in publicly traded companies, and I think that that's fantastic. But I would also argue that the blockchain inherently provides a level of transparency that you will not see anywhere else, because unlike these books that can be cooked or altered or modified by these companies, or sales projections can be changed. It's like the blockchain is what the blockchain is, right? And so that's my first point. And then my second point is, I feel as though there's not as much transparency as there could be from Veve, but I also feel like that's partially because they've learned what over transparency looked like. And at the end of the day, someone made a comment, I'm not sure where it was a little way up. Veve has no one to blame but themselves for the outcome of why people are bearish right now. And I do agree with that. I do agree that their failed timelines, making promises or announcing that they'd be delivered features that didn't come out and having that be a consistent trend, they really don't have anyone to blame but themselves for the fact that some people are bearish about the project. And I want to make it very clear. I don't blame people who are bearish on it. Like, any logical person could look at this and be like, yeah, like there's some things that haven't gone great here. Like what's going on, right? So I think what kind of separates it for me is I kind of look at it as a couple prong approach. The first one is, Patient Hodler, I don't know if you've ever met the team before. Have you met them? Okay, so I've met the team 3 times now, I think. Mm-hmm. And I had the opportunity to go to dinner with them in New York because that was a part of one of the picture things that was one, right? I went to dinner with them. There was a picture of me there. It's not really a surprise. Some people might have forgot about it, but I went to dinner with them and I got to spend 2 or 3 hours with them. And it's not like they were sitting there telling me all their trade secrets. Like, hey, we have this license and hey, there was none of that, but it was just being with them and being able to just find out who they were as people. And it became very clear to me, like very quickly, who they were. And I know some people have been knocking this collectors at heart rebrand or whatever. And some people haven't been happy with it. They don't understand it. But to me, if you've actually met the team and had an opportunity to have conversations with them, it makes perfect sense because they are first and foremost collectors who are passionate about collecting, who are trying to create a business. Are they the most qualified people to make this business? Probably not, but they're the most passionate. And companies like Disney and Marvel and Pixar and Star Wars and DC see their passion and they also vet them. So they know who they are as people because they go back, they have the conversations over the phone, they have the conversations in person while they're securing these licenses, and they all vet the you-know-what out of them for extended periods of time. Now, which
team members did you meet?
Oh, I met Dan, I met David, I met Reese, I met Alex. I met the whole team because I went to a couple of the Comic-Cons. But it makes you more confident. I mean, not that I don't love Reese and Alex because they're great guys, but I mean, realistically, when it comes to licenses, it really boils down to Dan and specifically David, right? So, but for me, when it comes to the vetting process, because I agree with you, we don't have the transparency that you would possibly have in a publicly traded company, but there is nothing that me or you or all of us sitting here as internet detectives of our own are going to discover about Dan or David or this project that as Cavell said, the entire teams of lawyers whose job as a profession it is to dig in and find out who these people are finding out about who they are and whether or not they're going to get in business with them, right? Like you don't see a company like Marvel making a partnership to this extent with a company like Veve if they're not confident about not just the product and brand that they're delivering, but the people that they're going into business with. And so I think that speaks volumes to me is that,
but that's Veve, not Ecomi, right? So in this,
well, yes, but Ecomi owns Veve, right? So if their main product is based on something shady, then they're not going to go into business with them, right? Like you're not going to go into business with someone.
It's not about shady. It would be, is there really like a commitment of these licenses to more than just the app with the collectibles and everything? Like, do we even know if there's like, okay, I sign off token that trades our collectibles and so on? Is there, I don't know, you have been on to dinner with them, maybe you have talked about this with them, I don't know, but I've never seen anything that says that Disney, DC and all these other licenses signed off on, hey, yes, token integration, cool stuff.
No, I mean, I've never had conversations like that before, but that was kind of outside the scope of what I was referencing initially. But I mean, if we're going to speak on that specifically, right? I mean, they're aware that the token exists because it's been a part of the project from the beginning. Like that was the entire premise of the integration. When DC was on the platform, Omi to Gem was active back in 2021. So it's not like it's a surprise that a crypto token would be involved in an NFT project to these licensors, right? But at the end of the day, you're right. Does that guarantee that the Omi token ends up being used? Of course not. And like I said, for someone like you, that might be, hey, no, I don't want to allocate as much of a percent to this project because that's not a guarantee, and it's not a guarantee. But for me, by that same coin, if a company like Disney or Marvel is going to sign with Veve and then find out that all of the users that utilize the token that was supposed to be associated with the platform got rugged because the team just decided they were going to go without a token, like, is a company like Disney going to sit back and go, hey, you just crushed our customer base that you built up relationships with for the last couple of years? I don't believe that to be the case. You might think that that's not enough, right? And true, I've never seen a document written where Disney has guaranteed that they will honor the Omi token in the app. But once again, like, how much more surety does a normal person need in order to make a decision about whether or not to move ahead? And for me, I can't sit here and say, hey, I need David to come over to my house and sit down on my couch and tell me, hey, you know, this is what's going to happen. I can just kind of look at the bigger picture and say, hey, I don't think that a company that's sold $400 million in primary store revenue and has been building up a project like this for the last 3 years is going to turn around and rug its core user base, who are also heavy supporters of the token, which made the project a possibility in the first place, and then just leave it at that. Because once again, the entire project would fail at that point, and Disney and Marvel and them are they've already vetted that. They're not going to allow that to happen, right? And if there's a legal reason that comes out that we're not aware of yet, where Omi cannot be used, that's just outside of our control. That's the only thing that I could see possibly being something that comes out. But we've started to see, you know, with XRP, like you referenced earlier, with this win in court for XRP, and not being classified as a security, that to me just gives more credibility to Omi and not less. If XRP had lost the lawsuit and we were sitting here having the same conversation, I would maybe be a little bit more concerned. But right now, I just feel like they're paving the path. Like the road is becoming more and more clear as these events come out, as, you know, major companies apply for ETFs, and as crypto becomes more mainstream, as Europe integrates regulation for crypto. Like, it's just, to me, it's just all the signs are finally starting to line up. It's just they've taken longer than what we would have liked.
So Hodler, is your concern, and I love the diversity. First of all, it's good to have diversity of thought and opinion and not exist in an echo chamber, right? And we all have our own personal strategies and our own comfortability in terms of how you want to allocate to every project. But Hodler, just to circle back before I get to this super chat question, is your, I guess, concern that they are not going to have no intention of following through on integrating Omi properly, or is your concern that they don't have the ability to actually see the vision to fruition, come to fruition?
I think it's more the latter. I even though I haven't met any of the team members yet, I hope to meet some. Have already invited some on my channel. Hasn't happened yet for obvious reasons, probably. But I think it's the latter one. They have the vision. They want to do it. I believe so. But my fear, or it's not a fear, but my concern would be that they cannot pull it off in the magnitude that the community expects it. And I think that's what ultimately drives the hype and also the price action in the end, is that you have these expectations and they hit this, and then it spreads like wildfire, right? And I think everyone is putting so much expectations in, because the Omi utility program, as it was presented in the beginning, was wild. Like, if you see all the things, like with the breakage fees and with the like the staking periods of the Omi token, that for each level you had to stake for 1, 2, 3 months, maybe levels where you have to stake an entire year or so, that could have come with needing Omi token to activate all the good stuff in the app, like collectible burns, like renting out collectibles, maybe even being eligible to certain sales and drops and raffles and I don't know what. I hope, or my concern is that this new redesign is part of readjusting to the actual capabilities of that maybe new blockchain team, or what they can achieve until the next bull market, and that it is below what the other articles are made. And that doesn't mean that there's nothing coming, and that will still result in a price pump. But my concern is that it will not be as big as it could be, as it should be, because the vision is awesome. The vision is like something that you never find in any place of the blockchain space, right?
Yeah.
Or NFT space. So I really want to see them doing all of that, plus some extras that we didn't expect, or where we thought that they really cannot deliver this. So that's what I would like to see, a little bit under promising and then over delivering into a completely wild altcoin season or whatever. That would be the dream. Also my dream. I don't want to see that fail, right? I also want to see my 2 million OMI go up, but and maybe it's then more. Yeah, who knows? But yeah, that's basically it. So I don't think it's that they don't want to and they want cut them loose, the coin loose or so. I don't think so. Yeah.
Want to get to this super chat. Thanks, Stan. How much of the FUD do you guys think are paid? Do you guys think that there's paid FUD from opposition or people who are adversarial to OMI? Or do you
I wish I get paid.
Or do you think it's just people? People are just upset.
I mean, I don't think so. I think it goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier. When people have a vested interest in something, their views, whether neutral or not, are always going to be, they're always going to appear skewed just based on who they are and what they represent. So if you get a Cryptoy sponsorship and you say a comment that doesn't look so favorable for Veve or Omi, then it's going to look like you were paid to FUD Veve and Omi, even if you would have said that comment anyways, right? So I don't think that there's anyone out there that has been specifically paid to go around to FUD the token or FUD the project. I think it's just people who, for one degree of reasonableness or another, have become frustrated with the project, and I think some people take it out in maybe some not so constructive ways that end up being detrimental not only to their investment but to everyone's investment, and that's something that I find probably the most disappointing. Is that I try and look. When anyone has a point, I try and look at it through their lens, right? Because we all have our own perceptions, our own perspectives. But why is this person saying this, and what experience or what could they be saying that would offer credibility to why they're saying that? And so I try and look at someone who's down bad, who bought at a penny and didn't dollar cost average at all, and is down a lot on their investment, and see that nothing's been delivered and understand why they're frustrated. But then, I can't really understand why people think that telling everyone that the project's going to go to zero, or that it's a terrible investment, or whatever, and just being negative under every post that Veve puts out or whatever, like how they expect that to somehow improve. Like there was a post that came out from someone who I had never seen in the community before, calling David Yu and Veve the biggest scam in crypto, and because Turkey wasn't involved in payout. For those of you that maybe weren't aware, beta payout has come back to Veve, so we are getting cash out back for both the US and international. And for whatever reason, and once again, Veve's fault at the end of the day, because it was an error that was omitted. So once again, all this boils back down to Veve, to be clear. But Turkey was omitted, and they're a big group, a very passionate group of collectors on the platform. And someone with a decent following came out and made this huge post about how Veve and David Yu specifically is a scammer. And then less than 24 hours later, we have Mitch come out and basically clarify, hey, no, we've fixed this. It was an error on our part, our bad, but it's fixed. And then they start to take credit. Oh, well, this was only fixed because I called them the biggest scammers in the space. And it was like, well, no. If Turkey truly wasn't included as a part of payout, there's no way they would have just been able to have it added in 24 hours. It just doesn't work that quickly, right? So it was obviously just a clerical error that got resulted, but it's just people choose to go about things in just kind of over the top, super negative ways. And I've never really understood that. Like, I don't know who they think they're benefiting by doing this, because I feel like I said, you're not only hurting your own investment, but you're hurting everyone else's investment. So if you don't believe in something, it's okay to move on to other things. I know Patient Hodler's talked about it a lot this episode. Opportunity cost is a big thing. And I'll sit here. I put a post about it on Twitter the other day. I sit here sometimes and go, did I make a mistake investing in Omi as hard as I did when I could have invested in other things first, made more money, and then I would have had more money to invest in Omi? And, I have to live with that, right? Like it's not something that I can change now, but I'm not going to sit here and berate the team and blame them for my decisions and, woe is me and be super negative publicly, because how does that help improve the community or improve the project? And I've always been a firm believer, if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say anything at all. And if you don't want to be a part of the project, that's totally okay. When those catalysts arrive, people will come back and they'll be happy about it. And, because things aren't going great right now, you're going to hear the negative voices the most. They're the biggest sentiment makers in the community. But there are a lot of people that believe in the project that don't really speak out as much, but you'll see the energy return once the price action starts to happen. And that all boils down to when we start to see that utility. So, whether it happens tomorrow, next month, or God forbid next year, I hope it's not that long, you'll see that change. So we just got to kind of ride the wave right now, support each other while I can. The fact that there's 137 people here watching this right now on a Saturday night just goes to show how strong of a community that we really do have. And, I think that the positive voices in here do far outweigh the negative. So I'm glad to see that everyone's out here, supporting us as creators and supporting one another in the community, because it can be rough when things aren't going great. So.
Yeah, but I do think it's important to point things out and to have constructive conversations. But like you said, the world is falling, the sky is falling. Jump to, that's FUD. Like, it's a scam because something isn't working properly, or you don't see something that's, whatever. Those types of comments we need to distinguish what's FUD and what's criticism.
Yeah.
Right?
I think the FUD bottom may not be in yet, because I was really hoping it would be. But if a blockchain team and stuff needs a little bit more time, and we have the entire altcoin pack, independently from everything that Ecomi does, take another hit by Bitcoin dominance increasing, Bitcoin rallying and stuff like that, Omi could be more red. Then you have payout back. Also, Veve collectibles are losing at the moment because not as much is coming in as is getting cycled out of the gem stack. So when prices are falling, that's when people start worrying again. We have seen a little bit of excitement right now. Payout got closed. Market vault values were going up a little bit. People were getting more excited. Omi sideways instead of downwards. So I hope the FUD bottom is in, but actually it might not be. And I think everyone should, even though no matter how positive you are, for example, I'm very positive about the secret rares comics and stuff like that on the Veve app. But no matter how positive you are, prepare for until the next year halving. It could be still, maybe a little bit more trickling down. Yeah.
I don't think that we're going to get the daily FUD spaces that we got. I think that the Veve FUD bottom is done. I mean, there was 2.5 months of just people hosting, Veve's scam Twitter spaces, and tons of people showing up because they were concerned, right? Because I mean, you had Mitch come in December and he's like, Veveverse by the end of the month, right? That it didn't happen. There's legitimate concern. And I think that it's a very fair point to point out a difference between FUD and criticism, right? The FUD is there where it's intentionally done, ignoring anything and just being consistently negative, right? And only pointing out the bad things. That's not objective. That, to me, the intent is to create that fear, uncertainty, and doubt, as opposed to actual criticism, which can be very healthy and should be constructive to say, hey, there are issues here that we're seeing. You guys promised us Veveverse in December. You didn't deliver. And then you're not really updating us as to what's going on there, right? So I think that's where the team, and it's funny because we used it when they would hold monthly AMAs, right? People were just oh, it's the same information all the time. Why do you even do these AMAs? And now they've pulled back, and I think that they're doing less of them until they have more information, and they're kind of building, and it's maybe every quarter or something. And now people are like, oh, now you guys never do them. You're not showing up. The team is running. They can't win. But like you were saying, I think it's important that it's just you know what? I'd rather them, and what we're starting to see is They're not announcing what they're releasing on the app. All of a sudden, it's just on the app, and people are like, "Whoa, the search bar function works! Oh, I can start I can find my friends on the app now, and I can follow them." Right? There's all these little updates that are happening. They're not announcing them anymore. They're just doing it, and I think that they've taken that to heart to say, "We're just going to build, and we're going to lower expectations, and people can complain about that, but then they're going to be pleasantly surprised." And I'm excited about that. And I get it, like a community driven project that Veve was for 2 years, where like we got to ask the CEO these questions, like come up to Twitter Spaces and ask this, right? As a company grows, like that doesn't happen. No one gets to AMA Jeff Bezos, right? Like you don't AMA these companies as they get bigger and bigger. When they're smaller and they're community, they're doing that to build the community. But as they get bigger, they've got other things that they have to do, and that to me shows the maturity that this company is achieving over time as they're starting to grow. And I know that that's going to alienate some of the community people who are used to that, and I get that, right? But for me, I'm looking at it from an investor standpoint, and I'm seeing a company that is taking it from here and they're moving up the ladder, and I think that that's important to start seeing that. But yeah, differentiating fun, and that's why I love this discourse. Like I never shy away from anyone who has a negative viewpoint on whether it's Veve, Omi, or any of my other investments, because I also am like, is there something that I'm missing? And I think that that's so important as an investor to remain objective about that. And to date, like with a lot of these concerns, I'm like, well, here's my explanation, or here's my thesis. I take in your point, and this is how I've considered it, and so I'm good. But every once in a while, there's something I'm like, you know what? I hadn't considered that. That's something I need to look into. And I had said, I'm like, look, if I don't see some progress in the app and MCP points here, like I'm going to stop buying Omi and Veve, like Omi token and Veve collectibles by mid 2023. And that was in March. And I have seen improvement. And so it was actually Hello K that reached out to me. We were like DMing, and he was like, so are you buying more? And I said, yeah, actually, I do feel like I have seen significant progress in what the team is doing. They're not communicating as much anymore. I think that they're just putting their head down and building, and I like that more. So I love the people who bring up these negative points. Like, not that you're necessarily, I think that you're trying to be like the devil's advocate a lot of times, patient hodler, and I think that's important, right? So that we do consider those angles to say, you know what, that's a massive thing that I hadn't considered before, and that completely changes my mindset on where I'm putting my money.
And because at the end of the day, not every business and project pans out, and we can't neglect that, right? There is a risk-reward ratio for every single investment in the world. And for every Amazon, right, that was early and struggled and made it, there's a Groupon, right, whose stock doesn't exist anymore. And, you know, that stock launched, I think, in 1999 also. You got Pets.com, bunch of companies that came up in that tech space that people were early for, that they waited through hard times, that just didn't make it. Not to say that that's happening here or will happen, but it's important to understand the other side of the token and be aware so that you can make an informed decision.
I agree. And I feel like over the last 3 months or so, we've seen probably more improvements to the project than we did in the previous 18 months. And I think a lot of it has come from the under promising and over delivering aspect that Patient Hodler was referencing. Cash out, they just said, hey, it'll be back soon. But they didn't go out of their way, hey, we're going to give you this date. It's going to be back here, then. And we have these partners. And then it was out of nowhere, randomly, I just get a notification on my phone. Hey, cash out's back. It's back for almost everyone, right? I mean, obviously there's some countries that aren't eligible, but it's not just back for the US, it's back for everyone. You committed to a target, you recognized that it was important for the community, and you delivered on it, right? Like MCP took longer than it probably should have, but we have points in the app now and we can see that. And so these other integrations, that's why I choose to give them the benefit of the doubt. It's like, hey, we haven't seen them yet, but I believe based on your track record, bringing the right people into the project, Mitch was an absolutely phenomenal hire by Veve, and in the stuff that he's been able to accomplish in the short period of time that he's been a part of the project. And even now, we look at the way that they're announcing partnerships, and we look at the way that we're finding out more information about the project. They're not going out of their way bragging, but if you follow David Yu on Instagram, you'll see a post out of nowhere. It gives us clue for drops. It gave us clues for, Kung Fu Panda. It gave us clues for the partnership that they were able to make with Alibaba Cloud Services, the partnership that they have with V? Like really?
Vive?
So, but and I don't know if you guys have had an opportunity to look at their website yet. I looked at their website and some of the works that they've done. They're incredible. The quality that they're producing. They did one for it was Mercedes-Benz or BMW. They did like an entire car commercial. It was unreal. They had one that had the T-Rex from Jurassic Park, which was just like the quality on it was just like, it was a movie. It was like movie quality. And I think Omi the Clown mentioned, I saw a post from him earlier today. They had shared a screenshot several months ago from a stage that looked like they were on Mars, and no one knew what it meant. There was no context behind it. But I guess that this was this company. So you get kind of a peek behind the scenes. Like they're not out there, bragging about like, hey, we're doing this and hey, we're doing this. It's just like, hey, we're traveling. We're, partnering, we're meeting with licensors. We're meeting with this. They were in Vegas and then they went all the way to China and then they were going around Asia to secure all of these licenses. And, we may not see some of these licenses that they've secured for a few years, but it's for me, it's reassuring to know that in 2018, they were flying tens of thousands of miles around the world to meet with these licensors. And in 2023, they're not sitting on their laurels. They're not going, hey, we've sold a bunch of, drops. We don't need to travel anymore. They're still traveling. They're still working hard. They're still building up these partnerships and they're not done yet. And I think that that's the thing that's most exciting for me is that because I've met them and because I can see how passionate they are, they're not just doing this because they want to make money. They've already made money. They've made good money. They can walk away tomorrow and they'd be fine financially, right?
I think they're rich.
But at the end of the day, they're doing this because David is passionate about collecting more than almost anyone else in the world. And he wants to build something as a legacy to collecting in a new medium that no one's ever seen before. And I'm going to trust someone like that over someone like a business suit in a boardroom who's basic focus is on the financial bottom line, because that's when decisions like cutting out the Omi token ends up being made, because it doesn't make financial sense to focus on something when you're already doing so well on something else. But because David and Dan are visionaries and think beyond just the money that they're making, they recognize that they've made a promise to the community and that they're building something that extends beyond just, it's a token. It can become the lifeblood of the ecosystem. And so I get really excited when I think about the future integrations of what we could see. And I do hope it's similar to Patient Hodler, like he said. I hope that the bar is set here and they come somewhere up here and we're all absolutely blown away about what ends up being delivered. And, then we see those green candles on green candles like you've been speaking about. It just, it'll take its time.
You guys are aware that we are going to be on a clip meme with this Veve thing.
Yeah,
you guys are aware that that's going to be a viral clip.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that might get memed.
Yeah.
Someone's making that right now.
Just to add to that, as Dr. of Stuff said before, and Foster also, I mean, yes, the two perspectives on this devil's advocate from one side, extremely bullish from the other side. Usually when you're trying to be not as bullish and hold yourself back, you take the devil's advocate stance. What can happen is also that you're only seeing everything is evidence for negative things. So I can only give that back to you guys as well, that talking with you, that's exactly where try to burst the bubble and just see what comes out when we have these conversations. And for example, what you pointed out, Foster, is absolutely right. They are out there grinding, they are building. That's not someone like Logan Paul who hopped to the next project. It's like what
no Logan Paul.
What zoo are you talking about? Is the next project. So I 100% agree on that. And just can't say that. I really hope that it plays out like this. And these partnerships also with the new payment provider, this Veve thing and Alibaba Cloud, absolutely bullish things. We see that they are working.
Sorry, what was the partnership with who? With who?
Yeah, it's Veve.
Veve. And you so high on that one. That octave, I was like,
can you teach me how to do that?
You just gotta, I don't know.
No, I really hope that that also comes around for the token, that we just see gradually that process that is being made on the Veve app, and trying to see something from another angle. I think that comment was clicked over from Jordan, but let's go back to the initial topic and just say that Coffeezilla would make a video about Omi and some bad actors in Omi, but not putting a negative light on Omi and Veve itself. Only a scandal that rips down a couple of people that were in the early days. How that would be 3 million exposure for Ecomi for free. So we should actually work to give him that evidence. if we can help him in any ways, that could be a very positive spin there.
Yeah, I wanted to circle back to that, because could this be a blessing in disguise if he actually makes a video that provides all this exposure and introduces 3 million people who have never heard of Veve or Omi to this project, right? And no one in the company is actually adversely mentioned.
Yeah.
It's definitely a possibility. I think, Patient Hodler, you should commit every view that Coffeezilla gets on his video, you buy 1 Omi for.
Just plus, that's 3 million Omi. If that's
so.
How many views do these? I just need to check my balance. How many views does he usually get?
He gets about 2 to 3 million now.
Yeah, he gets anywhere between 2 and 3 million, probably.
So at current prices, you better prices, that'd be about 12 to 1800.
At current, so don't commit me to that when Omi is 10 cents, please. It's like only at bottom, right? But sure, I will try to make it happen. So if that comes out and it's payable within the means of what I can afford and I'm willing to allocate, then yeah, sure. Just no OTC deals, okay? We don't need
no
OTC deals.
No OTC. Okay, it's like, hey, I'm texting someone to see if they have some 20% off Omi.
Yeah, we've been going an hour and a half. You guys want to do a little more, or Foster, do you have to go?
I got to run in a minute, but yeah, run out of L2. I mean, we got a great group of people here. It's kind of the energy right now in the chat is pretty amazing. It's hard to walk away from it. So
yeah, I don't want to.
If I can sneak away from the family a little bit longer.
But hey, so I want to do one thing. I want each of us to go around and try to pronounce that other company, like Foster did.
Okay, good. I've already done it. I've heard it.
Veve?
I can't do that high pitched thing. I have too much self-respect. I get turned into a meme.
As he sits there in suspenders.
I got
Coffeezilla outfit. To get back to Omi, I do think we talk about the bottom of FUD being, whether it's in or not. I do think for Veve, we hit peak FUD, I think, because they have started rolling things out and people are seeing that progression. For Omi, the closer we get to the Bitcoin halving, if they're still not delivering, I think a lot of people are going to worry and have anxiety about missing the bull run. Is that a thought in anyone's mind that here we are 9 months out from the halving? About 8 months ago, they put out the utility article, and they said we'd have about half of it by now. They said within a year, they'd be running through it, and we still haven't gotten anything. Anyone fear that within the next 9 months, closer to that halving, we still don't get a major development on Omi, and that's, I think, going to ratchet up the FUD.
I'm going to say something that goes against my perceived persona. I will go so far as to say I would be worried about the project if we see no Omi utility in the next 9 months. I don't normally worry about things too much, but, you know, like you said, there's the opportunity cost that needs to be considered. And right now, when everything's down, it's not really too much of an issue. I don't care that I missed a 2x from the bottom of Bitcoin or anything like that. Like, that's, to me, with what crypto represents, that's negligible and can be made up quite easily with the Omi token. But if we get to a point where there's no clear roadmap or clear progress for the OMI token when it comes to integrating utility, especially with the other news that we're getting in the overall crypto space right now. I would start to worry about whether or not necessarily whether or not OMI is a good investment, because I still, like I said, until it becomes clear to me that they're not going to deliver the utility, I don't think that OMI becomes a bad investment. But where it becomes clear is, are there other investments that may be better for me? And right now, I can sit here fairly comfortably and say, hey, I missed 40% gain on XRP because it beat the lawsuit. Like, I'm not going to lose sleep over anything like that. But like I said, if we start to get to the point where Bitcoin breaks 40K, and then that money starts to trickle down into altcoins, and we start to see OMI having no love just because there's no utility behind it, then there needs to be some considerations about whether or not some money is taken from it and put into other tokens, if not even just in the interim to take advantage of some of those gains that are being made, and then rolling it back into OMI at a later time if it becomes evident that progress is then being made. But I don't think I can sit here fairly confidently and say I don't think that we see a scenario in which no OMI utility is delivered in the next 9 months, to the level of which I think a lot of people in the community would want, including myself. Harder to say, but to say that we're not going to have any OMI utility, even if it's just season 0 staking, where we put your OMI on the app or whatever, and you get some form of reward, whatever it is. If that takes 9 months, we have bigger problems, I think. So I don't foresee that.
We better see more than just OMI staking in 9 months. Honestly, the team has been building for quite some time now. Like my expectation is within the next 6 to 9 months, we're going to have several portions of the OUP article out, like OMI utility out. And if not, I think I definitely would start asking some tough questions about what's going on. And maybe there's some legal implication, but I can't see anything to date that would make that an issue. So I would say, look, people have built out things a lot quicker regarding token utility than 9 months, on a project. So yeah, my bet is definitely that before the Bitcoin halving, we have some OMI utility. But it's a great question. And I'm the same as Foster. If in 9 months we hadn't seen any real progression on the OMI token and its utility, and then the Bitcoin halving happens and there's this bull run and OMI does nothing because of that, yeah, I would definitely see it. But that's why also I diversify, okay, so when the SEC came out and listed all these tokens that they're like, these are securities, I bought several of them, right? And I actually went ham on Cardano. I was like, give me a break. Cardano did everything that they could to make sure that they weren't a security. And yet the SEC is going after them. And then when the XRP stuff, like, I had a nice pump in my bags from that, right? Because I was just like, the likelihood. And again, so Sam Ellis had talked, he's like, all of this is speculation. I'm like, I would say it's more like educated guessing to a degree, right? You're doing the research and anything is possible. Anything can go to zero, right? But it's doing that research and saying, what's the likelihood? And the better that, if I can get to where I'm 60% of the time I'm right, I'm going to do very, very well in this space, right? I don't have to be 100%. If I can be 60%, 55% right, and I'm diversifying, then I'm going to do well. Yeah, buy the blood. Exactly. There's that fear because, again, I've done the research on Cardano to say, look, these guys did everything that they could to make sure that they would not be considered a security by the SEC. And yet, the SEC just seems to be throwing darts at everything and just throwing crap on the wall and seeing what sticks, just going after any big name. It's crazy. I don't get it. I don't get where Gensler's going. But that diversification is so key so that if OMI goes to zero, I still have a ton of Veve collectibles. I doubt that, I don't think that Veve collectibles will drop if OMI token goes to zero for some reason, right? And then I have this bag of a ton of other different projects, gaming projects, privacy token project. Like there's a lot of different things there. So, but I would definitely be concerned if in 9 months there had been no OMI. I'm guessing, again, my belief is that once this OMI token utility starts happening, I do believe that we're going to start getting some exchanges. Like that would be my guess. So within 6 to 9 months, I do believe that we'll have another exchange, if not multiple exchanges.
I just like to point out that no one said anything about 6 months. I think you're just saying 6 to 9 months because you like saying 6 to 9. So that's I'm just-
Nice.
I'm just
The Randy job is nice. I'm like 69. 69. I'm just saying it really fast. I'm just saying 69. You just think I'm saying 6 to 9.
Actually, I mean, you guys know from also around the Comiverse and so on that I am absolutely on your side with the 9 month to the halving. If there's nothing at the halving, I said that many times, I'd be out, or I don't know, depends obviously on the situation, but that would be also my deadline to completely reassess again, right? But there's something that I want before, and that is I want to see how that new Omi utility to MCP looks like right now, because I can put a deadline, but when the plan, I want to see if the plan looks good or not, no matter where the deadline is. I just want to see if, for example, there is a difference if you have for Omi to NFT and cash out into Omi and stuff like that, or if you have all wild currencies listed, you can use everything. If there are staking tiers still, if there are still, like, how do the burn fees look, how the reduction of the buyer's fees look, and so on. So I would just like to see that it's not cut back too much. And I would just like to see that there's a lot of firepower in that plan. So I'm really looking forward again to an article first, to a full article. So that's what we're going to do. Maybe they will not do it. They have the right to say, I'll just roll, or we are just rolling out the first phase, and here's the article to that first phase. So they could have changed that, right? So that there might, even though they said there will be another article first, there might not be an article first. So that is also a thing. But I would really love to see the plan.
I think that you're really onto something with that. I think that despite what some people may think, that the team is not stupid. They know what people want, right? And so I think that the concern becomes, can they underpromise and overdeliver given how much time has elapsed and given the expectations that have now mounted based on the time that's elapsed? And that's the one thing that I'll admit worries me a little bit, is because it's taken so long, have people's expectations become even further inflated, or are people just now not expecting anything because it's taken so long? And I'm kind of hoping it's the latter, because like you said, if they release another article and that's all that it is another article, people are going to riot realistically, right? So I hope that they do something similar to what you said. I hope that out of nowhere, hey guys, we're releasing this today. And out of nowhere, it's like, whoa, where did this come from? And it's just the article for that specific feature. Hey guys, this is how this feature works. And then in 2 weeks or a month, hey, we're rolling out this feature. Here's how this feature works. Because if you give people everything, then they have nothing to look forward to anymore, right? So if you announce everything, it's just like kind of like, okay, this was exciting. Maybe we pump a little bit, but then people sit there and wait for 5 months. And then when the feature rolls out, it has little to no impact because people are like, oh, we already knew about that. Like, who cares? So I think if they can roll things out kind of incrementally, and then it also keeps people engaged, right? You give people a reason, because you give people a reason to come, but can you give them a reason to stay or come back? I think that's the biggest thing that's been missing from both the Veve and Ecomi side, is you can give people a reason to come onto the Veve app, but realistically, there's no reason to stay. Right? You come in, you buy your collectible. We have a very, very small subsection of the community that, builds amazing vaults and really interacts and enjoys their collectibles. But the vast majority of people, they buy their collectible, they go, oh, hey, that looks cool. They log out of their app, they move on to the next thing, right? So even something as simple as that push notification to let people know the drops are coming, you're going to engage the casual user again. You're going to give people a reason to continually come back, because each time that they receive that push notification, they can go, I don't care about Pixar, but maybe a DC drop comes and they go, oh, hey, I'll log on, I'll see what's going on. Oh, cool, this search feature works again. Oh, hey, you had this drop? I didn't realize this drop happened. And then you start to really bring people back onto the platform. So I think that they really have that opportunity, but it needs to be done incrementally, and they can't overpromise anything, and they can't lead people on. When it's ready, you roll it out, and people can enjoy it. They did it with cash out. It worked really well. I saw a lot of positive sentiment with the licenses that they've been announcing as well. It's been very similar. The drops, don't have a 2-week lead time. They announce it a day or two beforehand. People can get excited. I think that they're going to start to discover that more and kind of flesh out that process. But it'll be interesting to see how they roll it out. Fingers crossed they do it like you said.
Do we think now that the SEC defeated XRP that they'll be less skittish to list on an exchange? I think that they've been very conservative in some, Veve and Omi, they exist in a traditional world, right? They have one foot in the real world selling a product to consumers. Then there's the crypto side. In some ways, I feel like they think like the crypto regulatory, side of things poses a threat to Veve, their traditional business. With that now case done, do we think that they'll be closer to getting on an exchange that'll alleviate some of their fear?
I haven't read the judge's ruling as to exactly where the judge came down to say these are the points, or these are the actions, or these are the instances in which we would say that XRP did not meet the definition of a security. So until I really do that deep dive, I can't answer for sure whether or not Veve can then compare themselves and say, well, we did similar things here, and the judge is saying that this isn't a security to where we feel safe. But I'm sure that their attorneys are on that, or hopefully they will be if they're not already, looking into that ruling, because then it's a precedent, right? A precedent has been set, and they can now go look and say, we are not afraid that if the SEC comes after us, that we'll be designated security because we did XYZ the same as XRP. And because XRP did this and they were not a security, we would also win that fight. And so the SEC is probably not even going to go after that, right? So I would have to look at that to be sure. Because I don't know, I'm not familiar with like how XRP did their token raise, how they set up everything. That's something I'm not familiar with, so I'd have to look at that before.
Well, they did say that their sale of tokens to big investors that did constitute a securities sale.
ICO to
Yeah,
institutional investors is a security.
Right.
But
so
if
that
there
was
are
a partial win for the SEC. But the main crux of it, whether or not it's a security sold on exchanges, that was won by XRP, and that was very good precedent. It doesn't mean that all tokens fall under that same umbrella, and I'm sure that's what the SEC is going to follow up with, right? But it sets that precedent. Any token that's anywhere similar to XRP now, like Ethereum, the big blockchains, those guys can breathe a little easier.
Well, the other thing too that really hasn't been fleshed out is the CFTC coming in, right, and saying, you know what, like, some of these tokens are utility tokens, a commodity, right? And then they have different regulations that they have to follow as well.
CFTC.
That aren't as onerous, right, as if you're designated as a security and having to put out those financials and things. So, like, a lot of this still needs to be fleshed out, and that's where I think that because of the major IP that they have, they really are being uber cautious in how they're handling the token. And that is a risk, and there's that opportunity cost risk. But again, like we've talked about before on Around the Ecomi verse, is when Fidelity did that assessment to say who are our most successful investors, and it was the ones who had either inactive accounts or were dead because they didn't actively trade, right? They didn't get the FOMO to say, I'm missing out the opportunity costs, and they panic and they move their tokens to here. And then they're chasing these green candles. And what happens is constantly they're moving to the project that's already pumped instead of holding at a project that hasn't pumped yet, but then maybe does a massive pump. And maybe it doesn't, right? But overall, when they did that analysis, it was the people who just held. That's why I like that patient hodler. You're asking these great questions, right? But you're still hodling, right? You haven't panic sold. You're not saying, well, this is boring. Like they're taking too long and I've lost faith. And that's okay if you have for people, right? But it's the people who stay in the project where they've done the research, and then those projects end up doing well. Well, they held or they bought more at the bottom. And so then their gains are substantially higher than anyone else who's trying to catch the next greatest thing.
Yeah, I would say that's exactly what my whole strategy is, just buy and hold long term, because 90%, 95% of traders lose unless you're like Sona.
Yeah, I got to see Sona's record. I love that he puts out a lot of his wins and losses, and that's massive because I see so many people who make these claims like, oh, I turned $3,000 or into $200,000. I'm like, did you? Or is that just what the vault value was? But did you sell at the top? Or is that just what the vault value was, right? Because like there's a difference there, and being very transparent about that. So look, I love to see people be successful. I love Sona's takes. But I love the fact that he posts his wins and losses, and that's the true confidence, right? To say like, look, here's where I did well, here's where I didn't, and I'm gonna continue to learn from that. So massive shout out there. That's awesome.
Yeah, we've been going for almost 2 hours. Go ahead, Hodler.
What people also can learn from is Dr. Stuff has said it before. He bought the blood on a very extreme scenario. So I think right now you can see, even though we don't know how it all plays out into the next bull run, Dr. Stuff's sitting here and says, I went into, I don't know if it was Polygon, which you bought, or ADA, or whatever, what you said that you bought during when the SEC slapped them with labeling them as, there wasn't even a lawsuit against those tokens, but they were delisted from several exchanges. They were crashing down like big red line. If you see that and you have a bigger position and your vault just gets cut in half or whatever, then to say, okay, I buy more, had to have the guts. I think that is something that we can, or I just was impressed that you did that move, because when I saw that, I was like really thinking to myself, is the SEC going to win all of that right now? And I didn't make a move because of that. So I think, guys, even though it's kind of a borderline degen, it's also something that all the big investors are doing, and I think we can learn here something from Dr. Stuff's move that he made, and maybe it's time for me to make such a move with Ecomi or so. I don't know, but yeah, not financial advice, obviously, but I really like to listen to these perspectives.
Yeah.
So
I will say, go ahead, Doc.
Oh, I was just gonna say it was Cardano, and the reason I did mostly Cardano. I did some others, but it was mostly Cardano only because I had done the research in saying Cardano did everything in their power to make them not look like a security. And so I'm like, look, if Cardano's a security, then like everything's a security, right?
Yeah.
But like to me, that's where it's so important is you do the research and you're still taking a chance, right? They could, and like, because it all boils down to a judge at the end of the day, and how the judge interprets the law sometimes, and that can be terrifying, right? Because I mean, the different rulings that judges can make there. But yeah, for me, I felt very confident saying the likelihood that Cardano, like actually, if they get slapped with the lawsuit, that the SEC wins is very, very minimal. And so for me, for this massive dip, I'm like, I've definitely got to throw more money in there, because I think that the market is panicking, and I've done the research, and most of the market hasn't. And so those are the types of plays where, again, you can diversify, you can make money. It wasn't massive gains that I got, but some good gains, right? That I can then turn in and buy some more Omi.
One thing I learned in this market, I have a Solana position. A lot of people hate Solana, right? Because it's more centralized than the other blockchains. It has downtime, and there have been some tech issues, but I like it for its community and the development on there, and the space it occupies in the world of NFTs. And so I held Solana, and then it crashed all the way down to $8. And BitBoy was saying it's going to 0. Wendy O was saying it's going to $3. And it was really hard to buy Solana at $8. I was cringing, thinking, is this going to 0? Then I went back and looked at what I liked about the project, and I did more research, and I thought, if I liked this at $70 and $30, I really like it at $8. And so I bought Solana at $8, and then it tripled from there, went to $24, $25. And I feel like once that happens, a project is battle tested, right? The community is battle tested because they come back, and that shows a bit of strength there. And then it was named in the lawsuit, also dropped to $14. I bought some more. It went up. Does the same thing happen to Omi? I don't know. Like no one knows, right, what's going to happen. But what I do like about Omi is the community. One of the same things that I like about Solana is the community. And that I think is the secret sauce, because you can't just magically create that. It just, we see all these other companies with great products and they don't quite resonate or hit the way that Veve's do. And a lot of people have been upset about the project, rightfully so. They have reason to, but they're still here and they still want the project to succeed. So that makes me bullish on long term.
So Solana, I hate Solana, but only because I had several projects through some VCs that I invested in that were majorly hyped. I was super excited. They're doing the token generation event where they're dropping the token and the blockchain freezes.
Yeah.
Because people are trying to buy the token and it just stops. And like all of the token just tanked. And I was just like, Solana, like what freaking blockchain just has to stop and reboot? But I agree though, and this is a great point, right? I could not get my emotion out of that because I was talking to Dr. Profit about Solana quite a bit, right? Some of the projects. He's pretty bullish on a lot of the Solana stuff, and I was like, I can't do it, man. I can't do it because I can't separate my emotion from the logic, and I recognize that. So I'm like, I have to step away from it because I'm too upset. I've lost too much money in freaking Solana stuff, but if you can separate the emotion and the logic, and I do recognize that Solana does have a massive community as well that's really bullish on that. And you make some great points, right, about being battle tested. I still can't, like, I'm coming around to the idea of looking more into Solana again, but to date, I still can't, right, because that emotion is too strong. But I love that. And if you can just look at that and say, objectively, the community is strong, and what are they still building? And Solana is still building, and they're fixing things. I feel like Solana is the airplane that they're building while it's trying to fly.
Correct. Yeah.
And but eventually, man, once that plane gets built, like it could be pristine and awesome, right? But like there was too many dips that when I jumped on that plane for me, and I was like too many. I was like, I can't right now. But that's awesome.
And I think a lot of people say that about Omi, and they say that, well, I can't because the team hasn't delivered and they said this and they don't get things right. At the end of the day, some of those things aren't going to matter, right? What's going to matter is the deliverables and if the people are still here for it. We've been going for 2 hours. We still got 150 people here. I want to thank everyone for coming through. I know Foster's got his kids to take care of. Doc just got back from Yellowstone. He has to unpack. Patient Hodler, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning there. What time is it?
2 p.m. 2 a.m. Sorry, a.m.
2 a.m. in Germany. So I think now is a good time to wrap up. It was a great conversation. Do you guys have any final thoughts you want to share with the people?
I think it's really cool. And Dr. Stuff kind of mentioned this as well when we talked about perspectives, but I think Patient Hodler does a great job of sharing a more neutral viewpoint. I think I tend to be more bullish on things. So I think it is really valuable to have these types of conversations. And I thought it was really nice to hear that someone who's generally more neutral recognizes some of the positive, things that have been happening with the project recently and can, acknowledge that and say, hey, things are looking better. They may not be where we'd like to see them, but things are looking better. Maybe I need to reconsider my position previously and possibly even look at adding more. And, I think it's worth saying, and I'm sure Dr. Stuffs would agree with me, like, we don't come on these to try and convince people and convert them to the cult that is Omi and, everyone has to buy Omi, but I think it's really great to see that I think people that have been very objective this whole time can even objectively look at things and say, hey, we're not where we need to be yet, but we have seen some things that are moving in the right direction. I'd like to see more, but I can acknowledge that some things are going right that hadn't gone right previously. And so that helps me as someone who's internally positive and go, am I living in that echo chamber that you described, right, Danny? Like, am I only focusing on the positive? Do I never focus on the negative? So it's nice to hear from people that have different perspectives and that are maybe more neutral or even realistic than I can be at times. So I think that was very helpful for me. So thank you very much, Patient Hodler. I know you're always fearful that I'm going to jump down your throat when you say something that's not good about Omi, but I think that it's a very good perspective and it's a valuable perspective to provide to the community. And so we need people like you that can provide these observations, but in a very respectful way to create this discourse. And I think a lot of times what ends up happening is like Danny said earlier, people will just make these outrageous statements and you lose the point of what they're trying to say in how they're saying it. And so the quality of language that we use is so important. So I think it's great to be able to sit down and have conversations with people that, may not share the same beliefs as you, but that we can share our beliefs and the community can contribute as well. So I really enjoyed this conversation. I only had intended to stay for an hour and it felt like the 2 hours completely flew by. So thank you, Danny, for having me on, and Doctor of Stuff and Patient Hodler especially. It's always great to have these conversations and share these perspectives. So.
Yeah, look, I enjoyed the chat, and just for people watching, again, don't listen to the perma bulls or the perma bears, right? You don't you want to try to get as much information as possible, and then make your own investment decision that's right for you. And that's one thing that I think is so important too. Is I'll just give it an example. Like during the Veve pump, like I heard someone that was just like, yeah, someone told me I put 18 grand of Veve collectibles on a credit card because it's going to the moon. And I'm like, what are you doing? Right? Like, look, everyone is at a different financial spot in their life. Like, never over leverage yourself, right? That's the first and foremost, like, because once you do, you get emotional because you're tied, because if your investment doesn't do well, you understand like the hole that you're in. And so just remember that, right? Like we talk about Veve. I love Veve. It's one of my investments. It's a larger portion. Veve and Omi is definitely a larger portion of my investment portfolio. But I do try to keep an open mind about things. I love coming on and having these perspectives where people play the devil's advocate, or they ask these questions that are fair criticisms or points that need to be considered. And I like that. And hopefully that the Ecomi team and the Veve team are listening, right? And they take that to heart. And I do think that they are trying to build and be better and get bigger and better. And that makes me excited. And that's why I'm still here. But thanks for everyone who stayed for 2 hours. And I just want to say, guys, let's freaking get this up to 100 likes before we close out. We're at 83.
Yeah,
bump that out. We got enough people here to bump that to 100. So thanks, Danny, for hosting this. I appreciate it. I appreciate the conversations. So.
Yeah, I want to give those compliments also back to Foster and to Doctor of Stuff, because I think it's a privilege to be able to come on these roundtables and to discuss those opinions. Not everyone in the space has the opportunity to do that, and that is very good for my mind always, and to be able to stay in that. Trying to stay in that devil's advocate or rational point, because otherwise you get sucked into one or the other direction. So I really appreciate that, and I think we have at the baseline more in common than push the algo, more in common than it sometimes appears to the outside. And I. From everything that I saw, I didn't know the whole stream how many people were watching, so I was a little bit flattered from the 150. Yeah. So I was like, okay, probably like 50, 70 people. No, it's 150. Awesome, great, nice stream, Danny, and yeah, I'm happy that we can provide. Someone said the 2 hours flew by. That was my feeling as well, and if that's the case, then. I think, or I hope we provided some insights, some value. And maybe one last thing. You mentioned the community being battle, at Solana being battle proven. Imagine how the Veve fam and the Omi homies are coming out of this war, like blood stained and I don't know what, with sword and shield up and still surviving, right? So look what if that is all through and things turn out bullish in the end after the halving on both sides, with that community that has been testing each other all the time, knowing everything and every standpoint, it could be pretty wild just because of that.
Yeah, that's a
Agreed.
great point. There is the opportunity for us to come out battle tested. And
Yeah.
then once that happens, I think the conviction, there won't be too much doubt, right? If you do have doubt in your conviction. But it remains to be seen if it will happen. What I do know is that we just spent a great 2 hours talking. What started all about Coffeezilla ended up going in a couple of different directions, and it was a really great discussion. And I want to shout out to everyone in the chat. We had 150 people here at 2 hours. You guys are rocking in the chat, so thank you all for coming by, and thank the three of you. I'll see you guys in the next one.